We have here one of my favorite looking bikes of all time. This is a 2023 Scott Foil Pro RC in a size large, weighing at 7.45 kilos and in pounds 16.07 ounces. Stay tuned after the video. We have free buy sent us these wheels. Hey, how's it going, everyone? GC Performance here, back with another video, and today I have for you guys one of my most favorite bikes I have on the channel in a very long time. This is Scott's version of an aero bike. This is their Scott Foil RC Pro. This model retails for $11,000, and this is a size large, and as you guys saw, it came in right around 7.5 kilos. This bike to me is perfection in terms of a high-end bike. I think this is pretty much all you have to spend on a high-end bike, and I would not change anything about this bike if I was to get it. Whereas I've done the Addict Pro in the past, they had some Zip 303 hookless wheels. I like the wheels on the bike, I like the frame, I like the group set, I like everything about this bike, and I feel like this is kind of old school top tier pricing. 11 grand gets you everything you want under the sun on this bike, and you really don't have to change anything unless you want to for tires for preference. But that is just my take on the bike. And also the color on here is gorgeous, which I'll give you some color shots in a second, but it's like this midnight sparkle blue with the chrome kind of decal for the Scott logo. You have the foil logo on the front, you have the very minimalistic Scott logo on the front as well, and it fades to like this kind of mud gray, which is gorgeous, and it has some kind of speckle on there. The group set I like, the wheels I like a lot as well. But yes, I do think this is one of their best bikes they offer. I don't know why anyone will buy or splurge for the Foil Ultimate when it's $16,000. I don't know what makes that bike 5 grand more than this bike right here. But this is everything else you really need in a bike for a top tier bike. You get a top tier component set, you get a nice top tier wheel set by Shimano Durex 50s. A lot of these pros ride these wheels in the Grand Tours, and then you get a nice looking aero bike as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over what Scott changed this bike from last year's to this year's Scott the foil, and then I'll go over the whole component spec sheet on here. So with the Scott Foil, what they changed is noticeably they made this bike a lot more aero. They also changed the way the handlebar and cables are ran on here, but you can see they made the head tube much more longer, taking advantage of the new UCI rule to make this head tube a little bit more carbon on here to make it more aerodynamic. They also made the bottom bracket down here a little bit more aerodynamic as well. This thing looks like a TT bike. If you were to slap on some aero bars on here, this thing will be considered a TT bike pretty much. Much more carbon fiber in the bottom bracket area as well. The bottom bracket is still a press fit, but that is a nice little change of look. Also on here, we can see it does not look like a normal foil anymore. They do have this rear wheel tucked right up against that frame on here. A lot of people say this looks like this bike is a 3T and S5 mixed together, but this is where it's going to come down to. We're seeing a lot more manufacturers out here seeing what other companies are doing, seeing what's working for them. So they basically took their Scott Foil front end and the S5 and kind of merged them together, and it's a look that I am here for right now. I do like the S5. I don't like the front end, but I do like the S5 in the rear. But I do like this bike a lot. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous bike. Man, kids. Also on this bike, they made the head tube much more taller to go ahead and continue that aerodynamic aspect of the bike. You see a little bit more bikes have smaller head tubes where they have much more spacer stack. They made the head tube much more larger to keep this all one section piece to make it more aerodynamic. I believe the biggest, widest tire you can put on here is a 700 by 32C, which is much more than enough for a modern aero race day bike out there. 32C is a really wide tire, but there's a nice wide option as well. Another big change on here is the seat post on here. It's a 3-piece seat post system. You have this piece right here, you have this piece right here, and then the actual post itself which holds your seat. They do separate. They do this for compliancy to go ahead and make sure this bike is still compliant, because you can see this seat post is basically sitting right over the top of that carbon piece over there, so you're not getting the most vertical compliant seat post. It is also a negative 15 millimeters back, so it's not the standard negative 20 millimeters, so they want to make sure you get some compliancy there as well. And you have this little kind of this pinch release right here. You can actually add on Synchro's own light that they have right here. If I can do this with one hand, hold this back real quick. Boom. So you can see right here, you can shove on a rear light that Synchros makes, and it works proprietary with that, so that way you don't have to worry about a saddlebag light on there. They also did do an update to these bars. These are the Crescent IC Synchros bars, full carbon fiber, one-piece bar and stem combo. Much more flat, much more aero, and I do like the look of them better. They don't have that kind of hammerhead shape to them. They look much more aggressive with these sharp, clean lines. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this bike and talk about the specs on here. So starting off with the cockpit, we'll start here where I just left off. The These are the Synchros Crescent IC SL Aero carbon fiber handlebars. Synchros is going to be the brother company to Scott. This is their own brand, but it's their components they make. They also make wheels, handlebars, C-posts, everything like that. So Synchros is going to be made by Scott. This is a one-piece bar and stem combo in here, 42 centimeter wide, 100 millimeter stem on a size large bike, a size 56. The cool thing about this is that it's super light, much more stiff as well, and it looks badass. The downside is that if you do buy this bike and you're a size large and you want to go to a 110 or a 120 stem, you do have to, one, recable your shifters and housing, but also two, you have to go ahead and pay extra for this because I don't really think that shops swap this stuff out. I wouldn't myself, but like I said, if it was to save a sale, I might work with a consumer and say, hey, yeah, I'll go ahead and eat it, whatever it is. But yes, this bar alone is about $600 extra as well. And so that is a nice piece of expense to go ahead and do so. They do also offer a flat piece mount that comes out here to work with a Garmin or a Wahoo or whatever. But as you guys can see right here, you have these two little screws on the bottom that make it very easy to install. With this bike as well, the cables are ran from the shifters through the handlebar into the stem and then down to the front of the bike. These are ran internally, so if you did want to go ahead and change out your handlebars, like I mentioned, you do have to bleed the brakes again. But the nice thing about this, if you ever want to lower your stem or slam this bike, you can go ahead and pop away these spacers right here, and you guys can go ahead and just take away the spacers as needed, put spacers back on top, and you're good to go. On this bar, it also gives you the specs over here, which is pretty cool. We have width 420, reach 75, drop 125, stem length 110. Okay, it's 110 millimeter for size large. That's pretty weird. None of that. Learn something new every day. For the tape on here, it's going to be their own Scott Synchros tape. Not a big fan of the Synchros tape. I think that they should do better on here. It feels very tacky for a $11,000 bike. But those are the things that make your own bike yours, and you can go ahead and change those out later on down the road. For the group set on here, we have the brand new Shimano 12-speed Dura-Ace group set. Top tier group set, wireless, semi-wireless system. The shifters are going to be wireless. The front and rear derailleur are going to be cabled and hooked up to a battery, but it is a nice system. Very nice actuated hydraulic disc brakes, which is a plus. Going down to the top tube right here, we have the Scott logo right there. And then for the wheels, this is the nice plus. This is why I like over the Addict RC Pro. You get on here a very nice pair of wheels. Shimano Dura-Ace C50 wheels, 50 millimeter depth wheels right here with their own Shimano hubs, bladed spokes, and they are a clincher. That is the biggest thing I like about these wheels. These are a clincher set wheel set. You see a lot of Grand Tour teams still riding these wheels as well. Shimano has been tried and true for a long time. They made updates to these wheels for this year as well. They made the internal rim width a little bit wider and also the external rim width a little bit wider as well to go ahead and make it more comfortable tire to fit on here. For the tires, these are going to be the Vittoria Corsa Control Graphene 2.0, 700 by 25C in the front, I believe a 28C in the rear. Yes, I'm right. They did that for comfort in the rear and maybe aerodynamics in the front. You have a Dura-Ace front hub right there. For the front rotor, we have a 160 millimeter Shimano Dura-Ace rotor. These are the new Shimano Dura-Ace road rotors. These are actually a little bit heavier than the XTR rotors that people used to ride, but these are meant more for road, with a Shimano Dura-Ace brake caliper right here on the front. Going down the down tube of this bike, we have the Scott logo right here, which looks beautiful. And we have that nice Aero underbelly with the name of the bike, the RC Pro right there. The bottom bracket still stays the same. This is a press fit BB86 with a Shimano spin on there. The bottom bracket that's inside the bike is going to be a press fit BB86 Shimano bottom bracket. I believe they're like 30, 40 bucks on there. You do have two spots here for water bottle cages. They say Synchros right here and here. They are used with a T25, boom and boom. You have the UCI logo right here. And then also for the crank, we have a Shimano Dura-Ace crank 5236, 52 being the top chainring, 36 being the bottom, with a Shimano 12-speed XTR and Dura-Ace chain right there. And then the new Dura-Ace front derailleur. The Dura-Ace front derailleur, when you pair it with the front derailleur, the chain rings, the cassette, and the rear derailleur, you get what's called a Hyperglide Plus Plus by Shimano. What that means is that when you're shifting under load, when you're climbing, when you're putting down the most amount of torque you can on this bike, they're going to say that this will shift better and perform better under load than if you're just shifting relax, which is very nice. You're seeing more and more systems do this with the release of the new SRAM transmission set, but Shimano did it here first with the Hyperglide Plus Plus. So when some people say, hey, throw a KMC chain on there, hey, throw these type of chainrings on there, it's a good idea, yeah. I mean, it's still gonna perform pretty well, but to get that Hyperglide Plus Plus that Shimano talks about, you don't get it if you change that stuff out. For the cassette in the rear, it's a Shimano Dura-Ace cassette, a 1132 cassette in the rear. Super nice, clean looking. And then we have what I like on here. You got this little direct mount rear derailleur hanger that Scott gives you to include with the bikes. It separates the derailleur a little bit more from the cassette, allowing less friction for that chain when shifting, which is nice. And then you have that Dura-Ace rear derailleur in the back as well. Again, you can see here the separation for the tire to the bike. And I do like that they give you a 700 by 28C in the back tire for more comfort and compliance. Remember when I said that a lot of these aero bikes, no matter being a Madone, no matter being a Cervelo S5, no matter being a Specialized Venge, a lot of these aero bikes back in the day were known to be vertically uncompliant. You got a lot of vibrations vertically on these bikes. They're very stiff to sit on, so that's why they're adding that 28C tire to the rear. For the rear disc brake rotor as well, it is a 160 millimeter Shimano Dura-Ace disc brake rotor with a Shimano Dura-Ace disc brake caliper right here, and it being a little bit of an adapter right there as well. For the seat on here, it's going to be their Synchros Belcara saddle, carbon fiber rails, plastic body, nice wide cutout, Belcara, but a beautiful looking saddle. And then their own proprietary seat post, like I said, the Scott Synchros seat post. This is the only seat post that will work with this bike on the foil. You have a integrated seat post wedge right there as well. But that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think. This is one of my favorite bikes that Scott has done, and I absolutely love the color of it. Maybe I might have to take it for a spin later on. Here goes the free bike contest on these Dura-Ace C50 wheel set in the Shimano Dura-Ace hub right here. Here we go, boys. Bap.